What's up, guys? Before I start the video, I'd like to give a huge shout out to a channel that goes by the name GK Zim. I met this guy, the guy that owns the channel, randomly while I was window shopping, and just like that, it was like a reflex action. He wanted to boost my channel up, since it's a smaller channel, and he wanted to get it up in numbers. So I'm doing a shout out back to him. Please do me a favor and go and check out his channel. I've linked it down in the description below, and tell him Generic Motors sent you, okay? Thanks. Now stick around for my video. This is a Lifestyle 250 TB dirt bike, road legal of course, seeing by the rear view mirrors. This is by far the most common motorcycle that you will see in the country, and it's for a bunch of good reasons too. First off, they're extremely cheap to buy, so this one will set you back about 1,400 bucks. Secondly, it's really cheap to fuel, so the mileage on this one is 35 kilometers per liter, which is really good. So 1 liter you can go to town and back, at least from here. And thirdly, the parts are really cheap and available and easy to find. You will find that with dealerships like these all over the place. They are all over the place, and you can pretty much find parts for your bike if you need like a carburetor replacement, or if you need pipes replaced or things like that. You can easily find parts for it. These are the features that make a bike like this very ubiquitous in the country. And speaking of features, we have a 21-inch tire in the front. We have an 18-inch tire in the rear. We have the rear view mirrors. We have the speedo, which is analog of course, and we have a neutral light indicator as well as a gear number indicator. The indicator lights are LED, but the headlight is halogen. I wish it was LED though. We also have a single piston, single disc brake in the front, as well as a mechanical drum brake in the rear, which I also wish was a hydraulic disc brake instead. For suspension, we have a monoshock in the rear and an upside down fork in the front. For the power plant, we have a carbureted single cylinder air-cooled engine. There is electronic start and kickstart. There's the standard foot peg and rear brake, and there's a nice bit of added protection with the engine crash guard. With the specs out of the way, let's see what this thing can do. The bike itself is pretty nimble. I've had it for a while though, so I'm pretty much used to it, but if you can check out how it just weaves, how it easily weaves by those potholes. It's really easy to lean. It's not very heavy, even though it's a steel frame bike. It's light enough to like throw around, especially on tarmac, so it handles really well. It picks up speed really easily too, but you do have to be in a lower gear for it to for you to really feel the torque. At higher gears, it's not very apparent. What I find particularly good as well is the engine braking. So it's a very powerful effect. So when you combine the engine braking with the front and rear brake, it stops really well. It's not the snatchiest of brakes. Like, you really have to punch on that brake lever to really feel the effectiveness of the brakes, but it's not too bad. I find that the bike sort of struggles on uphills, especially in the 5th gear, which is its top gear pretty much, but around 4th gear you can actually accelerate up the hill, so it does have the power for that. But yeah, as you can see here, it's pretty much topped out, pretty much at its highest revs, and that's the top speed, which is around I'd say 110 kilometers per hour. So converting that would be around 70, I believe, 70 miles an hour approximately. So it's not the fastest, but considering the price, this is a budget bike after all. It's not meant to break any records or anything, but for city riding, it pretty much easily keeps up with traffic. It's only for maybe highway speeds that it could get quite apparent that it's not very powerful, but for regular city riding, this should be fine. It's more than enough. Looks like we are coming up to a slow truck. It's one of those water trucks, so typically when they're loaded they're kind of slow, so I can demonstrate some overtaking capability of the bike. It definitely has enough power to pass slow moving vehicles quite quickly, so you need that to put you in a safe position rather quickly. As you can see, it's easy peasy. You don't even need to be in the lowest gears to achieve that and overtake that smooth. So it's definitely powerful enough to get you out in a pinch. So that's very good for, especially for defensive riding, just to make sure that you get out of a pinch quite quickly, and you're not in the opposite lane for too long. Yeah, so I had to take a bit of a break here. I wasn't going to fill it up to the brim, but the fuel capacity for the Lifestyle 250 TB is about 12 liters. So you multiply that by its economy of around 35 kilometers per liter, you get about I believe 400 and something kilometers, 420 something I believe. So it's not bad. That is quite the distance for if you wanted to do like cross country riding on this, though I wouldn't recommend it. This is more of a city bike. It's not as comfortable as an adventure bike or something like that. So as you can see, the takeoff is pretty rapid, for a bike this cheap. Just 250cc, 250 in quotes, because if you look at the nameplate on the bike, you'll find that it's around maybe 232 or something like that. So it's not exactly 250 cc's, but it's kind of close enough. It's not too bad. The bike does have enough power to get you up to speed though, so as you can see, the bike, even at speed, it's kind of easy to chug around corners and stuff. And we have more slow moving traffic in the front, which is yet another opportunity for demonstrating an overtake. So it's fun to do these. Man, and it looks like here we are in 4th gear or 5th gear even, but it's kind of sloping down, so that's where these low cc bikes shine. Flat on flat surfaces or sloping down, you can get some really good speed out of it. Pretty fun. Now I want you to notice how well the bike absorbs the bumps. Like the road ahead is pretty bumpy, it's very uneven, but see how little my camera shakes even with all those bumps. It's a testament to how decent the rear monoshock suspension is. It's really, really soft. Like a bike this cheap, the suspension has no business being this plush at this price. But I have ridden lower cc bikes, and these ones were from well-known brands. I think there was a Honda on there, the one that I did my riding test with. The suspension was not as good as this one. So yeah, for the price, if you're considering something that is comfortable to ride on, like on roads like ours, then you probably may want to look at a bike like this. It doesn't have to be a lifestyle or anything, but bikes of this type are actually really, really great, and the suspension wise at least, and you can see how easy it is to catch up to regular traffic, and it's just soaking everything up, and I can pretty much catch up to city traffic. It's not bad at all, and the bike is really controllable, and again, notice how much it soaks. Really nice. What I can definitely say though is that there are quite a lot of vibrations in the engine. This isn't a very smooth engine, and this is just an inherent fault of single cylinder engines. They have this buzz, this characteristic buzz. I'm pretty sure you can hear it through the mic. This chattering sound. It's not as smooth as like parallel twin motorcycle. Yeah, those ones I hear, they're very smooth. But this one's single cylinder, so it's not as balanced. So it rattles quite a bit, but it does make a great sound though. So I guess that's a trade-off. But single cylinders, for the same capacity, they have more torque. So that's yet another trade-off. So you get more rattle, but noticeably more torque for the same amount of cc's. And you can see for some of these humps I'm barely even slowing down. It's just eating up the humps. It doesn't get unsettled or anything. Very plush. Another good characteristic of this engine, at its power level, it's quite easy to thread the needle in case there's quite a bit of traffic, like at an intersection, and you're trying to get somewhere quickly. Even if there's a lot of traffic, you can actually squeeze in at a decent pace and pick up speed rather quickly. So it makes it really easy to get out of sticky situations, or if you're trying to navigate really tight traffic, which the traffic here can get pretty hectic since the roads are quite narrow. One thing to mention too is that the clutch is actually pretty light. I'm told other bikes are lighter though, so opinions may vary on that, but the amount of misshifts and missed gears is not as much, especially now that I'm used to the bike, but they do sometimes happen, so that's just something to note. What I can also say is that the transmission for this bike is not as smooth as the Honda one. I think it's called the Honda Ace 150. The transmission on that is way smoother and way clickier. I never had a missed input on or a missed gear change on that one. It never happened. But on this one, you do sometimes get gears not clicking into place properly or something like that. But on the Honda Ace, there was pretty much nothing. So it's not as refined as the Honda transmission, but it's decent. It's good enough. This bike though is way quicker than the 150 Ace, I'll say. At least in terms of acceleration and everything, it's noticeably more powerful. So it does take a point for that, but it's also a 250cc, so there isn't much competition if the competition is like a 150cc. But for the price, a Honda 250cc isn't cheap. That's where this one beats it. The price to performance ratio is quite high for this bike. Another negative for this bike, there's barely any wind protection here, and you're constantly going to get buffeting in your helmet, of course, since there's pretty much no windshield. I suppose that's typical for like dual sport motorcycles, but it's just something to bear in mind also, just in case you want to get a bike like this. There is no wind protection, so if you're sensitive to the buffeting stuff, yeah, I would think twice about getting this. Or I did see though at Lifestyle that they're selling this model, the 250TB. It's like a slightly updated version with like a larger windscreen, so that might help with the buffeting. The rear mirror visibility is actually pretty good though. Even though the mirrors are small, it's very easy to either take evasive maneuvers or just to be simply aware of who's behind you. That's pretty much the end of the test ride. Now it's back to base. Now that you've seen how this bike handles, I think it's time for me to give it a rundown of what I think of its various characteristics. Starting off, of course, with the handling. This bike handles quite well. It's light enough that you can pretty much easily maneuver it from left to right. Like it changes direction very quickly. It's not too heavy, and you've pretty much seen how well it like absorbs the bumps. So it's really good in that regard. So for handling, I think I'm going to give it like a 6 out of 10. As far as the features go, there aren't that many. This bike is as basic as it comes. Uh, I mean, even for the instrument cluster, we just have like a speedometer with an that's an odometer, I believe, and if I have my terminology correct. So it's just those two, and we have basic lights here like the neutral light and the gear indicator and high beams and the like the indicator lights, but it is pretty bare bones. It's very basic. Like even if you look at like the switch gear, it's very basic when you compare it to like really more complicated bikes, like the BMW GS or even some Chinese bikes. There's the Lifan model, like the adventure type bike. It has way more going for it in that department. So this one is as basic as they come. There really aren't that many features. There's no ABS. There's no traction control, and you can forget about the even fancier features like the lean sensors and stuff like that. So yeah, it's as it's really extremely basic, but that's also reflected in the price. So for features, I'm going to go with like a 4.5 out of 10. The engine power, it's not too bad. I mean, this is just 250 cc's, so there really isn't much to write home about. It's you know it doesn't have that much power. It's 250 cc's only, and you also have to understand that these engines are more tuned towards fuel efficiency, um, and reliability rather than performance. So it's going to have it has decent fuel economy and stuff like that, but in terms of power, um, not that much, because when you compare it to like a Honda, I believe is it the CR250, I think CRF 250 Honda, it's the same capacity, but it makes like 7 more horsepower than this one. So yeah, in terms of power, it's not that great. But in terms of the fuel economy, that's where you get the most wins. This, I believe, it's a 12-liter tank. So it does get it. So at 35 kilometers per liter, you do you are going to go really far. So that's where this one comes in handy, and that's where it kind of fits the market, because this isn't exactly a race bike. It's more of like a daily driver. But if your intention is to use it like that and go as many places as possible for the least amount of cost, I would say this one is pretty good. I've seen better though. I believe the Honda, the 150 CB Ace, goes maybe 45 to 50 kilometers per liter. So this one is more of a mid-range fuel consumption kind of bike, but you do go far. So on that, I'd give it maybe like a 7.10. For the build quality though, and the materials, yeah, that's where the cracks start to show. Because if you notice, I noticed, like, for things like like if you were to look closely at like the welds, you can see like a lot of sputtering like on the welds. There's a lot of there's a lot of remnants for like the welding. If you're familiar with stick welding, the splatter of the slag. So there's a lot of that going for it, going against it in terms of build quality. So it's it's more of a it's like the epitome of function over form for this bike. Like if you notice the swing arm on this bike, it's like a rectangle tube that has been bent into shape, and been given some markings. So it's not they're not like custom parts. They're not like forged parts. So yeah, that's where you can see that's where most of the costs were saved. And you can look at some of the parts here. They're pretty rough, like the way they're put together. They work. I think they're strong enough if if you treat them quite well. But this is where that's where you really see the costs being cut on this. So the build quality, the materials, yeah, I'd give it around a 5. It's not the worst I've seen, but I really don't have another point of comparison. I just know from comparing this to like bespoke bikes that yeah, the build quality takes quite the hit, and that's where you get your savings from. But as far as value for money goes, I'd say this is a pretty good deal, considering that the bike only costs like $1,500 at most. You can actually get deals where it can go as low as 1.4. So I think for the amount of money that you pay for this, it's actually really good. And you've seen me knocking about on it, and it goes quick enough. It keeps up with traffic well enough. It has decent stopping power. It's not too bad. It's actually quite grippy, especially when the roads are dry. So, and it's relatively comfortable. It's not as comfortable as something with a smoother engine, because you do get a bit of numbness with all that vibration. Actually, my butt starts to itch a little bit when I give it quite a bit of revs. So I try to manage that to keep the itch to a minimum. But I think that's probably the numbness from the vibration. But I think as a package for its price, yeah, this it is really good value for money, in my opinion. So for that one, I'd probably give it like an 8.5. So we can tally those all together, which gives us an average score of 6.2 out of 10.